Coming up on Tech News Today, why GoDaddy face-planted yesterday and what the effects might be. Also, the looming Instapaper war and a big look at Steam's big picture. All that and more coming up.
Netcasts you love.
From people you trust.
This is TWiT.
Bandwidth for Tech News Today is provided by Cachefly at CACHEFLY.com.
This is Tech News Today for Tuesday, September 11th, 2012. Tech News Today is brought to you by ShareFile. Enhance your workflow, send files of almost any size easily and securely with ShareFile by Citrix. Try ShareFile today. For a 30-day free trial, go to sharefile.com, click the radio microphone, and enter the promo code TNT. And by the new Squarespace. Squarespace introduces a new content management system, making it faster and easier to create a high-quality website or blog. Plus, more than 50 new features, including mobile responsive designs. For a free trial and 10% off your first purchase, go to squarespace.com and use offer code TNT9. And by Gazelle, the fast and simple way to sell your iPhone, iPad, MacBook, or Android smartphones. Find out what your gadget is worth and get cash to upgrade to the latest iPhone at Gazelle.com. Welcome to Tech News Today. I'm Tom Merritt.
I'm Sarah Lane.
I'm Iyaz Akhtar.
And I'm Jason Howell.
And this is the show where we try to keep you up to date on the most important stories in the tech world, starting each time with the top 10 stories of the day in the Fuse Day News. In a few days, iOS 6 will arrive, and the built-in YouTube app will disappear. Google's on it, though, folks. The new iOS YouTube app hit the App Store today. Among the improvements are an easier way to browse channels and new options for sharing. Arguably, improvement is also the addition of ads, which allows access to things like music videos. And the iPad version is in the works as well as the ability to buy and rent TV shows and movies through the app.
Do you have a website serviced by DNS and hosting provider GoDaddy? If so, you might have been down for much of yesterday. A hacker behind the anonymous owner with a 3 Twitter account claimed credit for the outage, but a GoDaddy spokesperson claimed things had returned to normal by 5 p.m. Pacific time yesterday, and that it wasn't an external network attack at all that caused it. It was, quote, a series of internal network events that corrupted router data tables. A statement from the company's interim CEO, Scott Wagner, further says, quote, once the issues were identified, we took corrective actions for our customers and GoDaddy.com. It says it's put in systems in place to prevent something like this from happening again.
Pirate Bay co-founder Gottfried Svortum Borg was arrested in Sweden just after he landed from Cambodia. He's accused of hacking into servers that held Swedish tax information and stealing thousands of tax records. Borg was originally thought to be held by Cambodian police on copyright infringement charges.
LTE is coming to England and Wales and Scotland and Northern Ireland. Everything Everywhere, the joint venture between Orange and T-Mobile, has turned on LTE in London, Bristol, Cardiff, and Birmingham, and promises to have it working in 16 cities by Christmas, covering a third of the UK's population. They hope to reach 98% coverage of the country by 2014.
Samsung will sue Apple for patent infringement over its reported use of LTE connectivity in the next-gen iPhone, 99.99999% expected to be announced tomorrow. Samsung, which has been locked in a series of high-profile and big-money patent trials with Apple, had previously threatened to sue the iPhone maker if it were to release LTE-enabled products. A source tells the Korea Times that after reports that LTE capability is coming to the iPhone 5, the South Korean company has decided to take immediate legal action. Samsung reportedly says that Europe and United States are the primary targets.
Pentax introduced some new cameras today. There's the Q10, a mirrorless camera with a 12-megapixel sensor and interchangeable lenses. It runs about $600, which is $200 less than the original Q. Then there's the K5 II and the K5 IIS DSLRs. These are the new flagship models for Pentax with a weather-resistant design and a 16-megapixel sensor. The K5 II is $1,200 for the body only. The 2S costs $1,300 for the body only. And the difference between the two is that the 2S does not have an anti-aliasing filter.
They're not against aliasing. That's good. Amazon isn't wasting any time passing the savings on to you. A federal judge approved a settlement between the Department of Justice and 3 major publishers last week, and Amazon has already begun discounting HarperCollins ebooks. HarperCollins gets picked on first because they have reached a new agreement consistent with the settlement. Similar discounts have begun to show up on Barnes & Noble and Kobo stores as well. The publishers do not receive less money per book necessarily in these arrangements, but rather allow the retailers to set the price of the books instead of the publisher.
American Airlines has announced that the Federal Aviation Administration has given it permission to let its pilots use iPads in the cockpit in all phases of flight. The iPads will store documentation that replaces current paper versions that not only weigh 35 pounds, but which are constantly being updated and reprinted and cumbersome to bring on and off every flight. American Airlines says moving to iPads will save the company $1.2 million in fuel every year.
No kidding. In fuel?
Not a kidding.
Wow.
Yeah, I know. 35 pounds.
Google continues to try to take steps to appease those who lead the fight on piracy. Torrent Freak noticed that Google no longer auto-completes searches for the Pirate Bay. This will likely have the effect of slightly mollifying media industry leaders and not really affecting the traffic of the Pirate Bay at all.
If you're sick of Apple rumors, skip the next 30 seconds. French site nowhereelse.fr published mock-ups of the iPad mini. If the mock-up is accurate, the Mini would not have a uniform bezel and would include a rear-facing camera. The volume controls would be 2 separate buttons instead of the rocker found on the iPad. And, of course, Apple did not comment.
Are we back? Oh, okay.
Yes.
This episode of Tech News Today brought to you by ShareFile.com. When you're working, you need a professional and easy way to secure your files, especially large files. They're sometimes hard to figure out. How do I get this huge contract or all of this big data that I want to send to somebody? I don't want to just post it up on any old place because I want to make sure it's secure. That's why we recommend ShareFile.com by Citrix, the tool that millions of professionals rely on every day. ShareFile is a file sharing solution for business that's easy to set up, easy to use, integrates right into Outlook, so the recipient doesn't have to do any thinking. They just click on a link, they get the file, and it's under your control. You can password protect the files. You can see who accessed the files and when, and they can be accessed from anywhere. It's a nice side effect of all that security is you can collaborate. You can actually access your files on your Mac, your PC, your tablet, your smartphone, anywhere you go, and you know that it's only the right people who are getting to see it. It's super easy to use. Try ShareFile, though. You'll see what we're talking about. We have a special offer. Sign up today. Receive a 30-day free trial. Go to sharefile.com. Click on the radio microphone, because that's what we're talking to. We're talking into radio microphones right now. And enter the promo code TNT. Remember, visit sharefile.com and type in the promo code TNT. We thank Citrix and ShareFile for their support of Tech News Today. Joining us now to talk about the stories of the day, Jason Hiner, editor-in-chief of TechRepublic.com and writer for CNET as well. Welcome back, Jason.
Hey, always glad to be here.
Good to see you, man. How you been?
Excellent. Excellent. Thank you.
Good to have you. Let's start off talking about that YouTube app, Iyaz. You got it installed, right?
I've got it installed on my iPad. We're actually going to show you what it looks like. And the thing is, it's a lot like the Google Plus apps, and it's a lot like the Android app that Google's come out with for iOS. Right now, only on iPod Touch and iPhone. Like you said, Tom, it's coming out on iPad in the coming months. And you can slide to the left, and you can see all kinds of familiar-looking options here from YouTube. And one of the big changes here is that you can do voice search. You can do things like find music videos for once. Like if I look for the Foo Fighters, I'm actually getting Vivo. And one of the changes that that's happened in the YouTube app is that you can actually have the video playing on the top half of the screen, and you can actually still interact with the bottom half. If you use the old iOS app, you just get the video full screen, and you can't interact with it. So it's quite the change there. Let's see what else is different on this.
Welcome to the future.
Yeah, autocomplete. We can look, it's going to start filling it in for me. Something that was not in the original YouTube app. There are sharing functions that let you send this to. Let's get rid of this.
Android fans are yawning right now because
we've
they've been
seen
seeing
this
for a long time.
Yeah, so there's sharing options, which are totally different because normally the iOS version had, I think, 3 options: Mail, Tweet, and Favorites. Now you can see a lot more integration: Google+, Twitter, Facebook, email, message, clipboard. It's overall, I mean, it's a vast improvement from the old stock YouTube app for iOS. Maybe a quick around the horn. What do you guys think of the new app?
Yeah, functionality is better. It's functionality that the old app should have had and didn't because it was probably really cumbersome for Google and Apple to work together to update an app that's part of iOS. So this is really good timing on their part. We don't have any time between iOS 6 being downloaded by a bunch of people and a YouTube app going away. As long as you're proactive about downloading this new app and you use YouTube regularly, I think you just win.
Yeah, the only negative I could think of is that when I installed it and launched it, and it said, "Would you like to log in?" I was like, "Ah, crap! Two-factor authentication. I got to go find that stupid application-specific password."
That's not the right attitude.
Not a problem of the YouTube app per se. But yeah, this is an expected move. It's a good move. The YouTube app up until now that you have had on iOS was developed by Apple. Google had no control over it. So with their contract going up, I think it's actually a good thing for Google that they get control of their app back. What do you think, Jason?
Yeah, I mean, the app had gotten pretty crusty, the iOS version, and you know, there's a number of things that YouTube does and can do that really were not real well represented anymore in the app. You know, favorites and some of the other things. The biggest thing I was looking for, and they did do it, was I was like, oh no, what about AirPlay? Because that's like the best thing on YouTube is like, oh, you pull an app up on your phone and then you just sort of use AirPlay, you know, if you have an Apple TV to do it. And I was like, oh no, what is that going to be going? But it's not. It's in there. So once AirPlay was in there and I could access my favorites, I was like, okay, good, boom, done.
One of the things about AirPlay, though, I'm going to test it live right now. You can run a YouTube video on an Apple TV and then switch to another application. It'll still play in the original YouTube app on iPad. I'm going to press the home button and see what happens now because I haven't tried this yet.
Pressing the home button
goes away.
And it goes away.
If I was in the YouTube app itself, it would continue in the background.
Because it's part of the iOS.
Right. That was the difference there. So if you want to be able to watch YouTube, and by the way, look, the YouTube app actually has the YouTube logo. So that god-awful looking that television thing.
You know, I had a YouTube app similar to this a couple of years ago on a jailbroken version because there was one that was made not by Google but by someone else. And it was already like a couple of years ago preferable to the YouTube app that's just sort of been lingering in iOS up till now.
Yeah, but the less hooks that it has into the original, into iOS, you lose that functionality of playing things in the background. If you like
video,
kind of thing.
I need to see it anyway.
Well, then you have your second screen back though. You can actually mess with other things.
All right, let's talk a little bit about that GoDaddy outage that happened right after Tech News Today yesterday. GoDaddy suffered problems, prevented sites from being accessed by their domain name. A lot of people were confused about what was going on. It wasn't just GoDaddy hosted sites. GoDaddy does host websites. It was their lookup table, apparently. And as Sarah mentioned in the news views, a hacker claimed responsibility. A lot of people were suspecting it was a DDoS attack. And in fact, the GoDaddy moved its domain name system to VeriSign, using VeriSign to resolve not only GoDaddy.com, but DNS as well. And that made a lot of people assume that they were taking advantage of VeriSign's iDefense, which is a mitigation against DDoS. But GoDaddy this morning posted a response saying it was not a hack. It was not a denial of service attack. They were very specific to say it was not either of those. It was a series of internal network events that corrupted router data tables. And that makes perfect sense as well, why they would move it off to VeriSign to say, well, we fixed those tables. Let's offload it for somebody else to deal with. Jason, is it better or worse to find out it was an internal problem with GoDaddy that took down almost every site, at least intermittently, that's registered through them?
Yeah, boy, it's both, right? I mean, it's better that they weren't kind of hacked and taking over because, you know, this is one of those companies that now that has a big swath of the internet, right? I mean, a lot of, especially small businesses and individuals have lots of domains through GoDaddy. I would be interested to see the percentage they have, but I think it's pretty high. So you want to think that they're rock solid, right? Well, so at least they didn't it wasn't somebody from the outside kind of, yeah, I don't know, killing them. But at the same time, they don't have their house in order. Does this mean that they don't have their house in order as well as they should on the inside? You know, obviously at some level it does. So, you know, I think it's probably a growing pain sort of thing. This is a company that's been growing really fast, and they've been spending a lot on marketing, and they've been, you know, doing a lot. And it's probably they're reaching a consolidation phase where they're going to have to invest more on infrastructure and make sure they've got all of their ducks in a row a little better. You know, I think that's the bottom line. And
the general opinion of GoDaddy has been declining. They came out in favor of SOPA and got a lot of flack for that, and then sort of flip-flopped against it. And now, several months later, obviously, you know, they have what happens to a lot of companies, a technical error. It's happened to Amazon before, but because they're at the root websites, right? Like if you can't get to the domain name, a lot of people don't know how else to get to a website, even though you can. And that's very important and very visible when they mess up.
It's also interesting to me that for most of yesterday, a lot of people thought that GoDaddy had been hacked. So somebody or a group of people who were claiming publicly to be behind this, because of so much hacking that has happened, particularly in the last 12 months, you're inclined to believe it. Okay, well, we don't know the details of what happened, but it looks like GoDaddy got hacked because they're not a secure hosting company, and if you use them and you can't get into your email and you can't make money off of your site for how many hours, you better move on. Now, not only does GoDaddy have to figure out internally what happened, what went wrong, so that we can relay the information to the public, but now we have to do damage control on a completely fictitious version of the story as well.
Of the two scenarios that could have happened if they were hacked, I mean, the amount of information that's stored at GoDaddy, if you have private information on, so you can't just do a who is search, all the information that could have been compromised if it was a hack, but it wasn't. So the thing is, if GoDaddy got, well, they weren't lucky, but I guess of the two scenarios, this is the better one. It's an internal outage, but it definitely seems a little, it seems like it'll put off enough people to go, okay, they already have all this negative publicity. Why would I continue to go over to this place? I want to transfer my domain somewhere else.
Yeah, it's unsettling. I think it's tempting to make too big of a deal out of it and say that this is a horrible thing for a company that some people may be predisposed not to like already for whatever reason. These sorts of difficulties happen. They happen to big companies all the time. This is just very visible. I'm not defending them and saying it was okay that it happened, but I do think that if it became a consistent thing where it was happening all the time, that would be much worse. Maybe every big company gets one of these.
Well, that's why it's like 99.99996% uptime.
Yeah.
This is like that one day where everything went wrong.
I'm not hosting my domains there. I'm just saying. Let's move on to our next story. We talked yesterday in Newsfuse about how Steam Big Picture Beta went live yesterday, and joining us to talk about it, the guy who wrote the hands-on for Engadget, Sean Buckley, associate editor. Hey, Sean, how's it going, man?
Hey guys, what's up?
So you got to play around with the Steam Big Picture. What do you think?
Well, actually, anyone can really play around with it right now. It's open beta. You just have to opt in through the account settings. But I think it's actually a really strong first effort for a beta out the door that's trying to do what Steam Big Picture is trying to do. If anyone hasn't been following it, Steam Big Picture is basically what they call a 10-foot display. It's designed so you can pipe out your gaming PC via HDMI cable to a big screen TV and use it like it's a game console, sitting there with your classic gaming controller without the need for a mouse. And well, that's kind of what it does, but if it's not perfect, you can read more on our hands-on Engadget. But basically, what Steam Big Picture does, it does very well, but it gets kind of hung up a little bit on the ecosystem it's in. I mean, Windows 7 is a great environment for PC gamers, but it has things like it'll say, "Oh, this game's trying to connect to the internet," or there's a security error that'll pop up and just rip you right out of the controller-only interface. So boom. We found it to be. Whoop, go on.
You get that boom symbol.
Yeah, boom. Yeah, bing, right up there. And it's this alert, and it's a little annoying to kind of have to reach over and grab your mouse when you're sitting on a couch trying to relax and launch a game. But that happens. You can't even blame it entirely on Windows. We had Fallout New Vegas and other Bethesda titles come up because they have their own Play launcher, and even Steam itself had a few notification icons, not icons, windows that I think it was Batman Arkham City. When you try and play it, if you don't deactivate the CD key notification, it'll pop up, and you can only edit that, turn that notification off with the mouse. But I mean, it's a beta, and it is a PC gaming environment. I don't think anything you could do would remove that necessity of having a mouse and keyboard nearby.
Yeah, I played around with it this morning too. It's actually very easy to go into your settings there and say, yeah, turn on the beta, and you get it almost instantly. Looks very much like the Xbox dashboard at first, the way that kind of tile interface is and the way it feels. I was confused as hell by the first-person web browser thing. Explain what's going on with that.
All right, so I didn't understand that at first either. They called it a first-person web browser. I didn't know what that means. What that really means is you don't have a mouse, you have a crosshair, like a first-person shooter. And the best way I could think to describe it is you're not dragging a mouse across the screen. You're dragging your entire vision across a static web page. And it's kind of awkward. It works, and it makes more sense the more you use it than, I guess, using a mouse with a joystick, because that's horrible. Everyone knows that's horrible. But I mean, it has some issues. I mean, if you want to, let's say you want to click on the Engadget logo on the top of our page, or anything that's near the top or the edges of a screen, there's nothing to draw on the. If you're centered on the upper left-hand corner of a page, there's nothing to the side of that, because that's not something you can see on a normal web browser. So you see a bunch of blank space, kind of like on a smartphone when you reach the end of a page, and that's okay, but it does look a little janky. But that's if you're going to stick in the first-person mode, it works. The browser has all the same problems itself as the normal Steam browser. It's not going to be a replacement for Chrome or Firefox, or probably even IE. Even though I know it works on one of those bases. A first-person web browser, yeah. So it's a little awkward.
Now,
it works, I guess.
This is probably going to be a lot of people's first exposure to the daisy wheel metaphor for online keyboards, which have been around for a while. They do 8 groups of 4 letters mapped to the control buttons, and it's a lot easier to use. It takes a bit to kind of get used to it and navigate it, but once you get the feel for it, it's much easier to type on. I didn't play with it this morning when I was trying it out. Does it work as well as other daisy wheel implementations?
It works really well. I'm really excited about it because, like I said before, it's you don't really see these daisy wheel kind of controls in mainstream products. I've seen lots of independent things that use it, but very rarely do I see it in something like Xbox Live or Steam. It works about as well as the other ones I've tried. But it's got that learning curve. I think if you really dedicate to it, it'd be like pre-smartphone text messages. You memorized how to write every single kind of word on that 9-button touchpad.
Yeah, all those T9 aficionados now have a new skill to pick up.
Yeah, essentially. But I think with I'm excited to see it because this makes text input with a controller potentially viable. I want this to be the new industry standard.
Excellent. Well, Sean, you wrote a great write-up. Folks should check out at Engadget.com, Steam Big Picture Beta Hands-On. Thanks for joining us today, man.
Yeah, no problem. I've been waiting to.
All right, we'll have you on for a full show again soon.
All right, see you later, Tom.
All right, take care. Let's take a quick break and thank our other sponsor for today's show, Squarespace.com. Faster and easier than ever to create a high-quality website or blog, and it's reliable. Yesterday when so many websites were down, swordandlaser.com, which I didn't register the domain name, but it was registered through GoDaddy. You couldn't get to by typing it in, but you could get to swordandlaser.squarespace.com because Squarespace was up. Squarespace was working great. And from a technical perspective, it's an entirely new product now. If you haven't tried it out, you're not going to understand just how much better they've made it. But it's crazy. Well, it was a great product. I couldn't believe they've improved on this well. HTML5, CSS3, JavaScript foundations underneath, but you don't need to know any of that. You just go in and pick a template, make your site look professional, add a few graphics, put in your content, drag your images in now. You just drag them right in there, and boom, they populate. You can pick your photos out of a gallery, and the best thing is your images are then resized into multiple sizes automatically. You don't have to do anything for this, but if somebody's looking at your site on an iPad, on an iPhone, on an Android phone, whatever screen size they're looking at, your page gets constructed on the fly to look perfect in that screen size. But you don't have to take our word for it. Try it out absolutely free. No credit card required. You just go to squarespace.com, you type in your name and the name of your site that you want and an email address, and you're on your way. That's all the information you got to give them. And for 14 days, you can try it out, play around with it, import your old site, and if you like it, decide to become a member of Squarespace. Remember this offer code, TNT9. It's going to get you 10% off your first purchase on new accounts. That's 10% off your first month if you go monthly, or if you pay for a year at once, gives you 10% off the entire year, and you get a free domain name with those annual plans. I had one guy email me today. He's like, where do I put in the code when I become a member? Just on what you'll pay. There's a little thing down in the bottom left that says what you'll pay. You'll see enter offer code here. Click on that. Type in TNT9, and you'll get yourself 10% off. We thank Squarespace for their support of Tech News Today. Well, we've got a little copyright war brewing with Instapaper, don't we?
Yeah, so this is a story that it keeps unfolding. but I'll try to summarize it as best I can. Marco Arment, who is the creator of Instapaper, ended up yesterday blocking Instapaper access to 9to5 Mac articles, meaning that if I'm an Instapaper user and I'm reading a story on 9to5 Mac and I go, oh, you know what, I want to read this later, I go ahead and click read later, I get a dialog box saying, this cannot be saved to Instapaper. Now, originally, when the dialog box first came up, it was worded in the way that made it seem as though 9to5 Mac had blocked Instapaper. So some people noticed it and said, what happened? Because Instapaper actually includes functionality, and this is, Arment has said, this is because he realizes that there is a gray area. Some people say Instapaper is copyright infringement. It's kind of like stealing. It can strip out design and things like ads, and you're a for-profit business. And so he says, I understand that some people might feel that way. I certainly don't want to get into legal battles with any company. So if you're a publisher, if you're the New York Times and you say, I don't want Instapaper to have access, you can request to be on do not participate list. So that's sort of his solution, at least for now. He has said in the past, no company's actually ever wanted to be on the list. So as far as I know, they all feel that they benefit from the ability for people to more easily read more of their content using something like Instapaper, even if it changes the way that it looks and feels a little bit. So what happened? Well, it turns out that Arment himself blocked 9to5 Mac, and it sounds like it's kind of based on some personal issues. There was an article that 9to5 Mac had written, and this was related to the UDID leak, actually. There was a server stolen. It had Instapaper data on it. They, according to him, had kind of blamed Arment for being part of a bunch of data, private consumer data going out into the world. He said, I want you to change the article. I want you to retract some of this pointing fingers at me. He said that they wouldn't. He also said they call Instapaper Instascraper. He takes issue with that because he's not a scraping service. He also said that they were purposely changing the spelling of his name, because I guess his name is often misspelled or mispronounced.
A lot of people leave the R out. I've noticed that when they spell Marco Arment out of the last name.
So like
it's I see Arment a lot.
Yeah, so for a variety of reasons, he's got a personal issue with the folks over at 9to5 Mac. According to him, he's made a lot of communication. He's tried various methods, between asking nicely and getting angry and letting other people know on Twitter, and said, you know what? I actually don't want to be saving pages from publishers who object to the service. That's something that he actually told Matt Buchanan over at BuzzFeed. Matt Buchanan said, well, hold on a second. Okay, hey, listen, you have a service that you're running, that's fine. But what about all the other folks that have been critical of the way that Instapaper works? How critical do they have to get before you say, well, I don't want to work with you either because you were being critical of me? Now, he said, I have no intention to be blocking any other publisher. This is a one-time thing. But that doesn't really hold up either. That's a tough argument to say, well, I just have one personal issue with some people that I think are real jerks.
Well, yeah, and once you've done it once and you say, well, that's it, people start to wonder, like, well, it's it till when?
Right.
What's the line?
Yeah, and do you just have thin skin, and what's really the deal? As of today, Marco Arment had blogged on Instapaper's official blog. I overreacted. I still don't. I'm still not cool with what happened, but I know that the answer is not to just block publishers from using Instapaper. 9to5 Mac had been pretty vocal on Twitter that they were hoping that he'd reverse his decision, and they thought that it was going overboard as well. I don't know. What do you guys think? Do you think this is an isolated incident? Everybody learned their lesson? Because we see squabbles like this all the time. In fact, I can think of several others that just happened yesterday that we won't even get into. But it's interesting when it starts affecting me as an end user who likes Instapaper and also reads 9to5 Mac regularly.
Yeah. Web 4090 says, why shouldn't he block what he wants? Absolutely. No, he can block whatever he wants. It's his service. It's not against the law. But why should we use a service if we think anything critical of that service is going to get blocked? Right. If there's a possibility. And I think that's what Marco's realizing. He's backpedaling and saying, wait a minute, I don't want to be that guy. Mm-hmm. Jason, does this reduce your opinion of Instapaper in any way?
Well, I like Instapaper. of these kind of services, it's the one that I think is the best one. Some people like some of there's newer ones, Readability and a few others, but I do think that its business model and its viability to a certain degree is limited because it's fine while it's a novelty, right? Nobody's going to waste the time sort of trying to deal with Instapaper and say, don't put my site on there. While it's a novelty and while it's not enough, it's not taking enough traffic away that it's hurting revenue in any significant way. It's like, well, great, there's some power users that use this and we still want them reading our content and they may read some of it offline, but hopefully that makes them a loyal user of our site and our brand. That's fine. I just think long term, it doesn't have much viability, right? Because in order to grow and become a real business and become something that's supported, I mean, how are they going to justify to? I don't know how they justify. I'd love to see their paperwork or justification or elevator pitch that they make to VCs to fund this thing, because anytime you have a free service like this, it has to grow. And then eventually, make some money. Obviously, they sell the app for $4.99, so they're making money on the app, and they're not sharing any of that revenue. That's one of the issues, right? They're not sharing any of that revenue with the people whose content they're actually using, whose money they're taking, out of the pocket of sites. So, as long as it's a novelty, it's fine. But once they start doing things like this, they give any users reason not to use it, or they give. They get too big and they give sites a reason to block them. I mean, this thing's going to dry up and it's going to be over. I mean, that's pretty much. I do not expect Instapaper to be around in 5 years. I just don't.
Armin's been pretty much outspoken when it comes to any opinion he has. With Twitter, when Twitter was making the API changes, he was saying that effectively at this point, if they continue this, I will not have Twitter integration into this. If he wants to, there used to be an Instapaper free app for iPad. He removed that. He said that nobody noticed, and people were paying $5 for that. There was, and he's got competition with Safari out there. He's got lots of opinions, and if you're an Instapaper user, you've seen them. That's the thing. Like you will find them no matter what, because I've been using Instapaper for years, and Armin's got a bit of a temper. So the thing is, I don't think it's going to stop me from using a service like this. But the thing is, nowadays there is enough competition that if he wants to be more like politically correct, or he wants to make sure that he's not causing an issue, he might want to worry about that. But if Safari couldn't take away market share, and if Pocket or what was Read It Later before, if this is not stopping him, he can do whatever he wants. And I don't know if he thinks he's bulletproof with this, or the service is really good. So like if he just gets annoyed with one blog and then backtracks in a day, that seems about standard business for Instapaper.
Somebody in chat a few minutes ago was saying, well, he retracted what he did. Give him a break, live and learn. And I think that's absolutely true. But is it an isolated incident? I mean, it's worth talking about.
He's a fiery guy, right? Sure. And so it's not an isolated incident, and it's going to happen again. He's going to get his knickers in a twist about something. I don't know if he wears knickers, but that's a metaphor.
Do they really twist? His passion. I mean, you got to love the guy's passion for what he does, right? I mean, I love that but obviously he went overboard on this one, and it's sort of biting him in the butt. But I like his passion, and I like that he's trying to be a good leader and do this thing the right way. And sometimes you're going to step in it when you do that. I mean, that's kind of what makes you a good entrepreneur. The people who are aggressive and are take risks and do this kind of thing. And that's what they've done. They've created a service that people like. But I think if you compare it to something like Flipboard, for example, Flipboard has this revenue sharing model where they share revenue with publishers. Like that is long-term viable. I just think Instapaper is ultimately not. I know that's sort of tangential to this conversation, but there you go.
There you go. American Airlines gonna let folks use those iPads as long as they're flying the plane.
Yeah, that's right. If you're a commercial pilot working for American Airlines, you can now use an iPad in all phases of flight.
During takeoff and landing.
That's right.
Wait a minute.
I know. Shouldn't that bring the plane down completely?
No, I don't think the FAA has never said it would bring the plane down. I think what they've said is it's untested what the effect of all of these things are. So I guess what they're saying is 2 or 3 iPads in a cockpit is safe. More than that, we don't know.
Correct. The reason that there are iPads in cockpits at all is that they're they have been tested. In fact, this was originally allowed for just approval and use in cockpits back last year, 2011. And the way that it works up until now, or until recently, is this large paper-based reference manual, weighs 35 pounds or thereabouts, which pilots all have to have at all times, that are constantly updated, so constantly reprinted. It's very wasteful and kind of expensive and certainly heavy. And this is, it's a variety of, airport plans and other flight data. And it's all sorts of stuff that if for whatever reason your whole onboard system went down, you could fly and land a plane. It's like the last...
Unless your iPad goes down.
Well, that's the thing. It's funny. I recently went flying with a friend in a tiny little plane, and he's explaining this to me, like he has to have 2 iPads just for his sense of well-being, even though he's going to only be up in the air for an hour or two, because if an iPad went down, if for whatever reason, I don't know, the battery's just not as charged as he thought it would be,
right?
And he doesn't
the screen goes dead or something.
Yeah, and he doesn't have that backup paper version of his flight information, he'd feel, extremely screwed. What's interesting about this is okay, so iPads can be used by pilots at all stages of flight, before takeoff, during landing, and everything in between. And American Airlines says, yeah, this is going to save us money because those paper versions are so heavy. We're going to save $1.2 million of fuel across all of our planes annually, based on current fuel prices. So around that amount, which is kind of funny.
Because the planes will be lighter and they need less fuel.
Planes will be lighter,
to stay
35 pounds lighter. So, I mean,
Makes a difference.
a kid still has to have a ticket. So they don't want to just have one less kid and save fuel.
Yeah, they didn't add 35 pounds of. I mean, aren't they just going to say well, we can take 35 pounds more baggage now or something? I guess they figure that stuff just stays constant.
They're going to decrease all of our airfare. They're spread this around and decrease all of our airfares.
Fly American. They're cheap because they use iPads in the cockpit. Now I want to use mine too, please.
This is rolling out in American Airlines. 777 fleet is going to get approval for all fleet types by the end of this year, and it'll stop distributing revisions to paper manuals in 2013, so sometime next year. Every pilot and every instructor is getting their own iPad in order to get familiar, ease the transition. And there's talk of flight attendants as well having iPads on board, so not only for ordering stuff from your seat, but more information on who's sitting in what seat and that sort of thing. So it just brings me back to the whole, wouldn't it be nice if they stopped telling me that I was going to take down the plane by using electronic devices?
You noted that Patrick Smith, who does AskThePilot.com, said that he thinks the ban is more about preventing projectiles during takeoff and landing.
That's stupid too, because if that was true, what about a hardcover book?
Yeah. Or a Rubik's Cube.
Yeah, this is a constant problem. Or a pen.
Or those freaking cheese blocks that they serve on some of these. Those could take an eye out.
Or a baby. Flying baby's going to hurt me. Just like an iPad would.
Or a
sharp
cat.
edges.
In one of those little carriers.
That's right.
All right. That's why that has to be stowed firmly under the seat back.
Flight attendants will have 7-inch iPads instead of 10-inch because they're less likely to knock a person out if you get hit by one of those flying.
All right. Well, we're starting to run out of the logs. Let's move on to our last story, the ViewSonic Smart Display with Android. Why do I need Android in my monitor?
I'm not quite sure yet, but here's the deal. It's a 22-inch desktop display, 1920 by 1080. It's a $400 cost. It's going to be out in October in North America. You can use it as a regular display, but it does have Android 4.0 running on it as well. So as a TI OMAP 4 processor inside, Wi-Fi, Ethernet, speakers, camera, microphone, you could just run Android on the display if you wanted to. You'd never need to hook up a computer if you don't want to. First shown off in Computex under a different name, and this device uses optical touch technology. It's not capacitive, so you can only register two inputs at one time. I think this could be the beginning of a trend in displays because at this point they're all the same. They're commoditized. And is this like the beginning of the smart TV style of displays for the rest of us? Do we want all of our displays to be tablets? What do you think, Jason?
No.
Yeah, I'm with you.
So sorry. So no, what I actually, this is so funny, and I hate to say this because I'm going to really date myself, but in 2003, I had one of these. I believe Microsoft even called it Smart Display.
Yes, they did.
Do you remember this? Okay,
I know what it is.
Yeah, so I had one of these, and I thought I was so stoked when I got one of these and I was testing it. And then I found out I just never used it. I would carry it around, and then because there were just certain limitations to it, I just never ended up using it. So, but I think, fast forward to today, I think even more so we live in this kind of app and data-centric world, right? Where what really matters to you is you want to be able to get at your apps and your data, and your kind of preferences, right? Whether it's browser preferences, favorites, files, that kind of stuff really quickly. So going between devices is more about that. And I think it's more likely that we're going to see, a phone or a tablet kind of dock and be able to use that at different displays, and the displays become kind of dumb and commoditized. And, at some point, they're going to be more integrated into your workspace and your home space. And more that the device you carry around with you that has all your apps and your preferences and everything like that be the center of what runs everything. I just don't see us taking the display and moving it around. I just think that's counterintuitive to the way most people use their devices and work and are used to doing things. So it just doesn't make sense to me.
Maybe it's semantics, though, because using my tablet as a display is attractive. I've tried several programs. None of them really work as well as I wish they would. But maybe they just need to market this the opposite way.
I love this, by the way. I'm that guy that when my computer's restarting, I will grab a tablet or a notebook right away. If my display is a second computer, it's great. Well, you can reboot all you want. I'm going to check my apps. I'm going to check what's going on.
Doesn't this kind of turn a display into a gaming system right away as well? It's running Android. It probably has game input.
I don't know if it's got an accelerometer.
Capabilities. No, you don't need that, because in the newer versions of Android, you can plug a game controller into it and control games. It's a game system. Boom.
Yeah, on top of everything else.
Mm-hmm.
Jason Hiner, you're going to say something?
No.
Okay. Thought I heard you barging in there. Let's talk about the randomizer then.
Let's do.
Randomizer.
Let's do.
Kindleberry Pie is the headline on lilyputing.com. I've seen this at a bunch of different places today. It's a hack that brings together.
Wrong button.
Not yet.
Not wrong button.
It's a hack that brings together the Kindle as a display for the Raspberry Pi. You've got a Raspberry Pi.
I've got a Raspberry Pi, but I don't have a newer Kindle. This works on Kindle 3 and higher.
Okay.
In the instructions, it's noted that you might want to have one or two because you could brick your Kindle when you're doing this. And at the end of this experiment, apparently the guy who did this was like, this doesn't really make a whole lot of sense, because the e-ink display is good and you can type on it with the Raspberry Pi interface acting as an intermediary. But practically speaking, it's kind of lame. But the fact that somebody did this,
I know this is one of those hacks where I know people are looking at me right now saying why would you ever want to do that? I know because you can.
Yeah.
Exactly. Right.
Yeah.
I don't feel like you have to explain that to this audience.
I'm glad.
I think this audience is it's nice to be able to do that.
Just do stuff.
It's that the Kindle berries are still a little tart. They're not quite sweet enough to bake yet.
Not yet.
But they're worth picking.
Let them ripen.
Yes.
Exactly. Well played. All right, let's take a quick break. Thank our last sponsor for today's show, Gazelle.com. Yesterday on the show, locked in my price to sell my iPhone. I don't know what phone I'm going to get. I might get a Samsung, might get the new iPhone, I might get some Windows phone. I have no idea, but I know within the next 30 days, I'm going to get a new phone. And so I locked in that price now because it's not going to get more. It's going to get less as time goes on. And the best thing about Gazelle is that you can take your time. You can sell it today. Go online, you pick the picture, you tell them what you got, and then they will give you a quote that is good for 30 days, whatever it is. So go ahead, go there, try it out, do it, lock that price in. They'll send you a shipping label, or you can just print it out over email. They'll send you a box. In my case, they said, "You want a box? You that lazy, Merritt?" I said, "Yes, I am. Send me the box." And then you can drop the box off and send it back. As soon as they get it, they'll turn it around quick, give you money by check, by PayPal, or even by Amazon gift card. In fact, they can get a 5% bonus when you do it by Amazon gift card. So don't delay. Go to GAZELLE.com. Lock in that quote today and give yourself the ease of knowing you're going to get a little cash back for your old device as you take your time and plan for that new device. Don't just sell it, Gazelle it. We thank Gazelle and Gazelle.com for their support of Tech News Today. All right.
Do they do TVs?
You know, they don't right now. They're focused on the mobile devices because that's the stuff that's selling. I don't think they have it. Yeah, I know. I had a big old Mitsubishi 52-inch DLP I was trying to get rid of a few years ago.
Yeah, I have a TV I need to sell. I was going to say, do they do TVs? I'll be right back.
You'll be right. Yeah, exactly. All right, let's check the calendar.
Tomorrow is Apple's big press event, but just a reminder that things are a little bit different on our side. We will be recording TNT live 1 hour earlier than usual. So instead of 10 a.m. Pacific, we will start the show at 9 a.m. Pacific. The Apple event itself starts at 10 a.m. Pacific, so we want to have TNT all done. We'll go right into live coverage, and then from the live coverage, we'll go right into a special edition of Mac Break Weekly. So
kind of like we did with Amazon.
Yeah.
Except it was a half-hour delay with Amazon. For Apple, it'll be an hour delay.
Yeah, exactly.
Or an hour early.
We'll just get up that much earlier.
It'll be easier to convert in your head, though.
Yeah, right. Exactly. No, 5:30 a.m. is never better than 6.
It's 5 becomes 6. You just look at it and see a 6 instead of a 5.
If only it were that easy. No, please join us though. It's going to be fun, and then we'll be done, and we won't talk about it anymore. Actually, we will. We'll talk about all the things that we're talking about.
The rest of the week.
AT&T is offering the LG Escape starting September 16th for $50 on contract. Runs ice cream sandwich, has 4 gigabytes of memory, expandable to 32 gigabytes with a micro SD card. Nice and affordable. And Google Wallet is getting phased out. At least its prepaid card is getting phased out, not the wallet itself. The cutoff date is set for October 17th.
Let's see what's incoming.
Incoming message.
Got an email from Steven in Charlotte, North Carolina. Says, your discussion yesterday about the different ways email subscriptions have for unsubscribing reminded me of one of the features I love about Outlook.com. They do the work for you, apparently. Whenever I get an email that's part of a subscription or a newsletter, I just click the button labeled unsubscribe in the Outlook.com interface, and they take care of the rest. I'm not sure what they do, but once I click that, I never get the unwanted email again. Works for every email, even ones that normally require you to click a link in the email and then to log in. I never have to do that again. And he's got a link to a page on Microsoft that explains the feature. So a nice thing about Outlook.com there. Thanks for writing in and telling us about that, Stephen. All right, that's it for this episode of Tech News Today. You can submit stories for our consideration to include in the show at technewstoday.reddit.com. Join almost 10,000 people who are in there doing it every single day. Jason Hiner, thank you so much for joining us. Great to have you back, man.
Sure thing. Always glad to be here. You guys are the best.
Oh, yeah, you're the best. Let folks know where they can find your stuff.
Yeah, so Tech Republic is as always, is an online trade publication and community for IT professionals. So you can find me there. You can also find me. I write for ZDNet and CNET, our 2 sister sites as well.
And a big happy birthday to Mr. Jason Howell.
I thought I was going to escape.
21
That's
today.
right, 22. It's okay.
21
Real
in
age,
spirit.
come on. Yeah.
Thanks for all you do, man. You make this show run. People don't notice how much you do that makes this show as good as it is.
Oh, shucks.
So you deserve all of that. Have a great day.
Thanks. I will. Here. At work.
I know, right?
All day.
You can find us on the web, twit.tv/TNT. You can email us. Our email address is tnt@twit.tv. And you can call and leave a voicemail. Our phone number is 260-TNT-SHOW. Kevin Purdy joining us for the pregame show of the Apple announcement tomorrow. We'll see you then.
Go
You
ahead.
can fire it
Go
now.
ahead. Come on.
Veronica's
Fire me.
here.
You're fired.
Oh, my birthday is complete.
Happy birthday. You're fired.
Thanks.